you do want to make sure that you feel bad enough about your problems to solve them. But during a 24-hour day, most of that 24-hour days, you're not going to have anything that you could do to solve your problems. Sometimes you have to sleep and bathe and get other stuff done. So how do you feel good during that time that there's just nothing you can do about your problems? You're doing other things then. Well, if you could find a way to hack your brain so that when you can work on your problems, you feel bad about them, because that would be motivating. But the moment there's nothing you can do, you could flip a switch and just feel good about your life, even with the same amount of problems, and then when it's time to work about them, you go back. Now, what if you could do that? Have you ever had this experience where you had some problems in your life, but then you drank some alcohol, or you smoked something, or you did some hallucinogens, and suddenly your problems were exactly the same, but you don't feel bad about it? Your subjective experience could be fine, even though your problems are all the same. Now, if you have problems and you're feeling good about yourself, that's a bad situation, because if you're feeling good, but there are problems you need to solve, maybe you're not going to solve them because, well, you feel good. Why should you do anything? So you do want to make sure that you feel bad enough about your problems to solve them. But during a 24-hour day, most of that 24-hour days, you're not going to have anything that you could do to solve your problems. Sometimes you have to sleep and bathe and get other stuff done. So how do you feel good during that time that there's just nothing you can do about your problems? You're doing other things then. Well, if you could find a way to hack your brain so that when you can work on your problems, you feel bad about them, because that would be motivating. But the moment there's nothing you can do, you could flip a switch and just feel good about your life, even with the same amount of problems, and then when it's time to work about them, you go back. Now, what if you could do that? Wouldn't that be incredible? Right? Think how different your life would be if the only time you worried about your problems were the times that you could actually do something. You know, you could work harder, or you could try something, do something. And I would call that trying to make that happen. I call collectively brain hacking, meaning tricks that you use on your own brain to modify it, to permanently restructure it so it's more effective. Now, can you rewire your own brain? Yeah, you do it all the time. If you go to school, for example, and you educate yourself, you're creating a physical change in your brain, because you can't store memories and learn things without new structures literally physically growing in your brain. So you physically reprogram your brain with every experience. All I'm suggesting is that brain hacking is being a little bit more directive about it, where you're saying, okay, what specifically do I do now? And here's your micro lesson on this. I'm not going to solve this whole brain hacking thing because it's a big field. I'll just give you one little thing to think about. And this one little thing is going to grow. It's a little idea, a little reframing, that even when you hear it, you're going to say, I kind of already knew that. But it's not that you didn't know it. It's that you may not have used it as your frame or your filter on life, which is a little different than simply knowing something is true. Here's what I'm going to add to it. Have you had this experience? I'm hoping most of you have had the following experience. First of all, if you've ever done any of the hallucinogens or whatever, you've probably experienced having all the same problems, but yet you feel happy about it. Likewise, without doing any kind of illegal substance, wouldn't you like to be able to reproduce that? And one of the things you'll notice is, and I hope most of you have had this experience, have you ever had incredible sex? Not just ordinary sex, but like incredible sex. The kind where even though you might have had a lot of sex in your life, there'll be like a few occasions that you'll remember forever? Have you ever had that happen? I hope so. I hope you've all had that one occasion where it's like, oh my goodness, I didn't even know this was possible. Here's what I want you to remember. When you're in that mode, and after you're done with it and you're still sort of in the chemicals are flooding your brain and you're feeling good about it, here's the tiny, tiny little tip that will grow. Consider that while you're feeling amazing, all of your problems are exactly the same, but you're feeling amazing. Now, does that sound like a big deal? Because you already knew that, right? Was there anybody here who didn't know it feels good to have great sex? So some of you should be saying, I don't think you told us anything. I feel like we all knew that that feels good. The only thing I'm adding is the reframing part. Remind yourself, and it's the reminding yourself that's the important part, because that's what turns it into a filter over time, repetition. Remind yourself every time you can find yourself in one of those situations. Doesn't matter if it's because you had great sex or just something good happened. Remind yourself that you feel good while all of your problems are exactly the same. Now you might think that's not a big deal, and the first time you think of it, it won't be. The second time you think about it, it also won't be. It's a little teeny thing like a seed that will grow forever. So think of this little acorn as you're planting it in the yard, and you've got a long life ahead of you, and in 40 years you're really going to like that oak tree that you planted. But it might take 40 years. I'm saying that over the course of your life, you can keep working on that little thought. Every time you have a moment of peace in this terrible world, tell yourself, none of my problems have fixed, and yet I feel good. And you'll find over time that you can reproduce that. And you can find that good feeling even in the context of everything going bad, because you remember it, and you focused on it, and you filtered on it. And suddenly, you'll find that well, maybe not suddenly, but over time, you'll find that you can experience a happy day even if things are not exactly where you want them.